Our podcast this week is really an interesting and unique podcast, not just because we have Derek Hill, who I've known for quite some time and in the business known for quite some time, but also because when we finish this podcast in about 8 hours, 7 hours now, we're going to go fly to Guatemala. So you're coming with me. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but it's interesting on a day where, you know, flight days, you're like, okay, I have to fly today. Like you kind of think about it all day long. Well, as the day goes by, we'll have a couple more people show up today that are going with us. And so the whole day is kind of a Guatemala theme, and we're doing a podcast. So it's an interesting time because we're about to experience that. Again, we'll get into that, but let's start with, you're Derek Hill.
Good morning.
It's so cool to have you, man. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And you drove from Sisters because you moved out there.
Yeah, I moved three years ago, February.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had a place in La Pine for a long time, so I've just always loved Central Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And when life situations changed for me, I decided this is the opportunity for me to go where I love. And so found a property over there, and yeah, been in Sisters, and I love it.
What a
Nice.
great place to be. It's really cool because you guys are really good friends. You and I know each other.
Until I found out something I didn't know today.
Yeah,
But
well-
yeah, we'll get into that.
We only know each other through social media.
Yeah.
That's the only connection we have, even though we shared many years in the industry.
Yeah.
We never made a personal connection. So this is fascinating for me. And I learned something about you that we also have in common that
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get to chat about later. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm super jazzed to have this conversation
Thanks.
today.
Yeah, me too.
Well, let's dive in and get into who you are. You're also the first veteran we've had on the podcast. So I want to kind of start there because I'm always fascinated by people who put their hand up and go, "I'll go." Like I'll get involved because I don't have any connection to the military. So you went in at what age? How old were you?
19. I didn't have a father figure growing up. I was raised by a single mom. I'm an only child, so you know my whole life basically moved every time that my mom's rent went up. So one thing you don't know about me is from the time I was born till I was 18, I moved 48 times.
Whoa.
What?
48 times. So, you know, it could have been literally across the street or down the road or whatever. But yeah, I went to almost a different grade school every year.
Okay, so
And
I'm
so-
20 times, and I thought that was a lot.
Yeah, 48 times. I hate moving boxes of books. My mom had so many of them. And so anyway, moved a lot. But, you know, so I didn't have a dad. But I just never really missed it because I didn't know any different.
Uh-huh.
You know, it was just like one of those things. But I didn't really have a lot of direction. I was always into sports. So I was always focused and I always, you know, did sports at a high level, but I didn't have any priorities. So for me, it was, oh, there's snow on the mountain. Let's go.
Mhm.
You know, I was always okay in school and, you know, all that stuff. But for me, if it said fun, that was my priority. And so, you know, graduating high school, I got accepted to U of O's architecture program. So I went to U of O, but then again, just other stuff got in the way. And a friend of mine's dad kind of saw how my life was going. Was like, you probably should really think about this. And so it was recommended, not in a bad way, but it was just like, you should probably do this. So yeah, I joined the Navy and I fixed it. I fixed all the things that, you know, made me not put priorities first. You know, the military really does teach you just to get the little things out of the way, get that stuff done, and then do it right. Because if you don't, you end up doing it over and over and over again. Because
Along with some push-ups and some running.
tons of push-ups. Yeah. So
Structure, discipline, and order.
yeah, and it makes you obviously rely on your whole boot camp. You know, you have 80 people, and if one guy's not doing it right, you're all doing it again and again and again until everybody, you know, figures it out. So that's how boot camp works, that, you know, those kind of egos out of you to where you have to work as a team and see all that stuff. So yeah, I did 4 years in the Navy on the USS Mount Hood.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that ship was an auxiliary ship. We carried all the bombs and fuel for the battle group. So we had a lot of bombs, a lot of ammunition.
No way.
So anyway, it was always fun to think about being on a basically floating bomb at
Support
any
ship
time.
for a carrier,
Yeah.
right?
Really?
Yeah.
Support ship
Don't
for a
light a
carrier.
match.
For the whole battle group.
Oh, okay.
So 8 or 9 ships. So if they needed fuel, we would give them fuel, like jet fuel, diesel fuel, whatever.
Sure.
and then we'd go into port, refuel up, and come back, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, did 4 years and then got out.
I'm just gonna call you Sailor from now on.
Yeah,
Hey, Sailor.
Sailor.
Wow. I want to dive in. We're not moving off this childhood thing either, because I just had a conversation this morning with somebody who's a mom, and she moms really hard for her son. Single parenting is not easy. We met with Sarah Keller. She was on the podcast, and she talked about being a single mom, but from the perspective of the child, do you want to, I mean, how?
I think the time frame that I grew up was completely different. I was a kid into the 70s, the 70s and high school in the 80s. So it was a different time. I mean, women didn't have a whole lot of respect or rights, or, I mean, it was a fight. Opportunity. Thank you. That's probably a better word. So yeah, she was just always fighting and scratching to, make money. And I don't know, I can't explain it. It's the weirdest thing, because I just did what I was supposed to do. I was pretty much left on my own a lot. I've pretty much raised myself since I was probably 10. Wow. She'd come home for dinner, but I'd get myself to school and, had the free lunches and had the free breakfasts and did all that stuff. So I'd go to school, have breakfast, have lunch, and then come home.
And where did you grow up? What part of?
I was in Southern California until basically the 6th grade. And then I moved to McMinnville, Oregon from Santa Monica, California.
No culture shock there.
McMinnville, Oregon, yeah.
Especially back in the 80s.
Yeah. So, but the thing that really got me through it is sports. I just always played baseball. I was, always active and stuff like that. So I just always, but what happened is, because I moved so many times, I always had to, if I wanted to have friends, I'd always have to be going to meet people or going to see where are the kids playing, so I was just always, I was that kid at 8 o'clock in the morning knocking on the doors, because I wanted to go do something. And
so one of the consequences of an upbringing like that is not being able to fit in. But it sounds like you found ways to fit in, even at a young age, and sports was one vehicle for that. But you were willing to go knock on doors and say, "I want to be, I want to do, I want to play."
Yeah, and and then you don't have anything else to focus on, so you just be really good at it. And so because of that, I was always pretty much accepted, because I was always, especially baseball was just my love. I wanted to be Johnny Bench, so I was going to make it into the pros.
Good choice.
But
you were a catcher?
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So yeah, it was different. I think today, the social aspects are different. It's I don't know, it's a different. I was a single dad as well, so I raised my son from the time he was 4. He's 28 now, but I was a single dad for a long time. So
did you take any of what your mom, like anything from mom's way of doing things? Did you take some of those things, knowing what worked?
Yeah, I was there. She had to work, so she just wasn't present.
Oh, okay.
She could make it to some of my events and, sporting games and whatnot, but we didn't get to do a lot of things. We didn't go on vacations. We didn't, do anything. So, so yeah, I tried to be more present. But as a result of being a business owner or being in the mortgage industry, it's when the phone rings, you got to answer it.
Sure.
And so my son remembers me, we're hunting and I'm in the woods and the phone rings and he's like, "Dad, come on, we got to go. There's deer right over there." I'm like, "Sorry, buddy, I got to take this phone call." Some people aren't like that, but I don't know.
You didn't have your ringer on, did you?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. And vibrate, dude. The deer's going to run away or whatever you're hunting.
Yeah. Priorities.
Not deer. Yeah, bears.
Deer,
lots of bears.
It's funny. It's funny. Your mom's, we could call it, at least for the sake of this conversation, a negative example of not being present, but it really wasn't, because she did what she had to do.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't like she was choosing to not be home with you. It's just what had to happen.
Yeah.
But you still learn from that example of, I don't want my kid's life to be like that. I want to be present.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, obviously wanted for my kid what I never had, opportunities or a stable place. Like my goal was to never move when once I got my kid in. Unfortunately, a divorce situation happened, so I had to move. But I bought a place out in Canby with a couple acres on it, and then So the funny thing is about that is, now that he stayed in one house for so long in this little community, now he's like doesn't like change at all.
Oh wow!
So it's super weird to see the dynamic. Like I have zero problem with change. I don't even plan anything, so I can change. Like if you said we're going to Guatemala tomorrow, oh, all right, no big deal. My son, it's just different to see how sometimes being in the same place all the time, you don't like change. You don't like things. You don't like your cheese moved. So I get to deal with him in that respect. So
it's so funny that moving a bunch as a kid, like it can, my brother and I dealt with it differently, but for me, it was like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to go make more friends because I don't want to be bored. And so same thing. It was like, let's go make friends. And in my business career now, that's fully how I am. And you are too. I mean, you're growing a company right now and you're just like, hey, you're my new friend. Like, this is really cool.
100%. Yeah. We're family now.
Yeah. Wow.
It's unrelatable. When we moved to the Seattle area, I was 4. I lived in one house for a year and then lived in the next house we moved to 5 blocks away until I graduated high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? It was all
Which is what we did for our kids.
Yeah.
Because we had gone through the opposite.
And that's what I always wanted. I envied kids that, I mean, I can't remember a teacher's name.
Yeah.
But my son can remember all of his teachers' names, you know? It's
Yeah.
just different. I don't think either one's bad. It's just
Yeah,
different.
I don't think it's good or bad. It's just you do what's necessary.
Yeah.
All right, so you get through military, and obviously military goes right into mortgage industry. That just makes lots of sense.
Natural transition.
So most people that come out of the military go straight into the mortgage.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I actually went to work for a guy detailing cars. So out of the military, I always liked cars in high school, and we were always putting in our own stereos because back then we could do that.
Yep. Back then you could pull your stereo out too.
You know, the 6x9s in the back.
Yeah.
The
Jensen triaxles.
we
I
had
had
the
215s. Yeah.
I miss those days. That was actually a lot of fun.
It was fun.
But I always liked working on cars. So I met a guy at a church that I went to that owned an auto detail business. And so I went to work for him for a year. And after a year, I was running the whole thing. And he was paying me, $1,200 a month. That's how much I was making.
Wow.
Wow.
I know. It was huge back then.
Yeah, that's.
I didn't see that kind of money until I got out of college.
I still don't see that kind of money.
Yeah.
Hey,
We'll do something about that, Kirk. Sorry.
I get tea though.
After a year of running his whole thing, I was like, all right, I need to make some more money. So I said, look, I need to get a raise. I'm doing everything. I said, I just need a raise to $1,800 a month. And he said, no.
Oh my god.
So that was the best thing he could have ever done for me. Because then the really smart thing I did was, that was in August that he said no. So in October, I decided to start my own mobile auto detail business in October in Oregon.
So you were an entrepreneur basically from the beginning.
That's where I learned how to put all these systems together. That's helped me with this, the company that I run now, is building all those systems. So, but you know, mobile detail business in October is pretty smart.
Oh yeah, in the Northwest.
So I thought
That's
ahead.
great.
I really thought a lot about that. Put together a big business plan, and so my marketing plan was I'd print 100 flyers every day, and I wouldn't come home until I passed out 100 flyers. So I'd drive around to businesses. I'd drive around. I had a '78 Chevy van that I took the seats out of and put all my equipment in there, and I had the buffers and the vacuums and blah, 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 blah. And this '78 van with the engine in the middle. You remember those?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that was my marketing plan. And I just wouldn't come home until I passed all those out. But 9 times out of 10, by the 20th flyer, somebody'd be like, you can do it right now? I'm like, yeah. And I'd go detail somebody's car and make $100. So I figured if I could do that at least 18 times a month, I'd make more money than I was making for the next guy. So again, guys, this was huge, humongous marketing plans and, you know,
but you
business
drove your
planning.
Harvard
You
Business
decided
Review
that.
stuff.
Yeah. But you just decided you would do that. Nobody told you this is how you do it.
I
You were just
knew
like, I'm
that
gonna
I
go do it.
could. I had the confidence in myself, knowing I can talk to somebody that wants their car detailed at least once a day. That was just it. That was my whole game. That was my business plan, basically, betting on myself.
You know, there's some. You work in a business like ours or the business that you're in. Marketing is a critical component to what we do, and it should be for any organization. Telling your story effectively to the right audience is important, right? But what's really important is getting people to come together and take action towards a common objective. Of course, you have to have a plan, but take action, and that's exactly what you did from a very early age. You
I just saw on Facebook, somebody said, if I'm going to go talk to these realtors about what, if you had $1,000, what would you spend it on for marketing right now? And I just commented, On Clouds. I really like those shoes. They're very comfortable. And I would buy those and I would go meet with as many people as possible. Stop trying to sit back in your office with $1,000.
Wait for the phone to ring.
Put shoes on and get out and go be in front of people.
That's a whole nother topic. I call it, there's no silver bullet, but that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, so after the military, did that, started my own auto detail business. And then by October, by January, I landed an actual wholesale account. So a dealer that would send me all of his trade-ins. So I needed to find a place with a garage. So long story short,
he's making enterprise deals at a young age.
So from basically for the next 8 years, I started that and grew it to 3 locations, and we were doing 100 and something cars a day.
A day?
Better than 1,800 a month, weren't you?
Yeah, we were doing a lot of cars. I did all the Ron Tonkin dealerships. We had a location downtown, one in Beaverton. So again, I had 30 employees, and then but what happened was I met the gal that did the loan on my very first house in Orchards. Dolly Krause at Irwin Mortgage up in Battleground.
I remember Irwin
I don't know if you remember her or not, but she did the loan on my very first house, and I just looked at her and I'm like, there's 2 of you, and I went to her house to drop off documents. And I'm like, and you have this place. I want to do what you're doing.
Oh my gosh.
So I asked her, how do I get into this? And she's like, back then there was nothing.
Yeah, you're in it now.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So I was running my detail shop, and 2 days a week I'd come up to Battleground, and I'd go into her office every day. And I did that for a year. And then once I decided I'm going to do this, I sold my auto detail business, and that's how I got into the mortgage business. So
wow,
you're describing something that you're describing it so casually and naturally, and that's great because it's part of your DNA, right? Mm-hmm. But the things that you did to get yourself into the mortgage business, forget about any success that came after that, which we're excited to talk about. But the things that you did to get yourself into the mortgage business are a level of commitment that most people won't take, even once they're in the mortgage business.
Right.
That's another rabbit hole we can go down.
Yeah. I mean, well, and I don't mean to pick on the mortgage business, real estate, any endeavor, really. It doesn't really matter. The 80-20 rule is now like the 90-10 rule, and it's true of almost every endeavor.
Yep.
Profound statement right there about what you're willing to do to.
Well, the funny thing is that at that time, I swore I'd never have another employee in my life. I didn't want any more employees because I had 30 auto detailers, and I could tell you stories about some of the things that they're great people, but just things that they don't think about that, as an owner, you end up paying to fix on somebody's cars or whatever. So that was my goal. I just wanted to do it by myself. So once I got in the mortgage business, over the next 8 years, I worked for different companies and would get promised things because I became a pretty decent producer fairly quickly. And so people would promise you stuff. And then a year later, you're like, okay, where are the promises? And they're, oh yeah, sorry, we're not going to do that, or we've changed this or that, whatever. And so that's when I decided, all right, I'm going to just go do my own thing because I know at least I'll do what I say I'm going to do. So that's how I ended up doing my own thing.
If you are watching this podcast and you're in the mortgage industry and you haven't checked out the Knowledge Coop, you definitely need to dive into the Knowledge Coop. In there, you will find content and community that will help you grow as an individual by learning everything there is to know about the mortgage industry. If you think you know everything, just dive in and take some classes because there's always something more you can learn. To be successful in this business, you've got to continually learn. In addition, if you're a company and you want to teach your people in your own environment, we've got that in the Knowledge Coop Enterprise Services. So reach out to us, check out knowledgecoop.com. Definitely join Coop Plus. Let's get back to the podcast. Since we're talking mortgage, my first experience with you was you were working in Clackamas. And I will never forget, because I was an AE calling on all the broker shops.
Clackamas, was that Enhanced Financial?
No, it was Directors.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And
I opened that branch.
Yeah. Well, I was so intimidated because you were kind of a big deal.
Oh.
And I went in there and I'm like, I got to go talk to this guy. And I was super nervous. And I knew Sean from Broadway. Mm-hmm. And he's just such a super nice guy. Mm-hmm. He was just like, hey, Ken, like really excited. And so I'm like, oh, this director is like, it must all be like that. And then I walked into your office and you were not that way. You were so serious, but you were so dialed. Like there was a system and I had to understand the system if I was going to work with you. You guys had our rate sheets built into your rate sheet. Mm-hmm. And you were like, no, like this is how we do it. And I just remember my take on you was this guy knows what he's doing. He's built a system. He's a leader of people. He manages his business and I better not mess up. And I didn't get that from a lot of people at the time, but you were like, that was my first memory of you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I always love hearing what people's first.
You knew what you were doing, and you knew you could communicate that to me so that I knew that your business was important and your business and your clients were important.
Yeah.
And don't mess with your clients. And it was just like, all right, I better do it right.
Yeah.
And you weren't aggressive or anything. You were just, you knew what you were doing.
I was definitely not the nicest of people back then. I think I was a little driven, and I know some people back then are like, oh, I remember that guy, because the reality is I get frustrated when something wasn't going right, but the reality of it is it was something that I did that caused it not to go right, but I didn't.
It's always hindsight, right?
Yeah. 20 years of hindsight.
And wisdom.
So yeah, I'd get upset with an underwriter and be like, that's crazy, and reality is I just didn't know the guidelines well enough. So, I'm definitely a different person than I was back then.
Well, you said something that I think is important, and it fits in the lesson from last time. I saw a guy who had a plan. He was a leader of people. I can't remember all the things you rattled off, but I used to get loan officers come to me and say, all right, what, so-and-so's doing really great. What do I got to do to get there? I said, okay, I'm going to give you the silver bullet. I use that exact term. Are you ready for it? Because don't tell anybody. Have a plan, work the plan. And they would look at me like, come on, man. I go, no. I don't care if your plan's on a napkin. Have a plan, work the plan. And this is what you just do naturally. Yeah. Or because of all the things you went through. For whatever reason, that's just who you are, it sounds like.
Yeah, I guess.
So you grew a branch, but you were a branch manager, and you started the branch, ran the branch. Yeah.
Me and another guy named Andy, can't remember his last name. Anyway, we ran it together, but I honestly I wasn't trying to be a leader. I didn't want employees. I just wanted to do my stuff. And, back then Directors was a broker, and then they hired 𝗘𝗺𝗯𝗿 to start their warehouse line. And so there were some things that happened that didn't work very well for me. And, so yeah, decided to go work with some guys that I had worked with before. They had already had Advantage Mortgage Group, and I kind of came underneath them, and had my own little thing in Lake Oswego. Remember, off Gene Road?
Yeah.
And then after like 2 years, those guys, their volume kind of fell off, and they were told to dissolve into somebody else, and so they came back to work for me. And so that was kind of the start of me having more employees again, was back then when,
What year was that?
Yeah.
2002, 2003.
Right at the beginning of or right in the middle of the big crush.
Yeah.
Before the big fall.
Yeah. And, the funny thing, you talk about lessons from last time, I've been thinking about that. And I was just during that time period, I was just, I didn't have any debt. I had my house payment. And I had savings. So because I had this business and detailing cars and knew how to have a financial system, and, I just always kept my overhead really low. And being a single dad, I wasn't paying attention to anything. I was in 𝗘𝗵𝗄, and I know, there was a lot of guys that were focused on all the fast and easy stuff. And my thing was, I can get you a better rate if I can just see your income documentation rather than just, let's just go fast and easy. And because it was a higher rate, but people were just doing it because it was easy. Well, I was the opposite. And so, I don't know, I just always focused on what I was doing best for my customers as far as rates and fees and stuff like that. And so, I just cruised right through 2007. I mean, there was a period where I didn't do a loan for 3 months. And that would kind of go, I was like, all right, I'm on the teetering edge. But then all of a sudden, it's like the thing just switched, and which was what was different then from now. I think people just kind of pivoted a little bit because we still had all the other products. They just couldn't do the subprime stuff. But
you got HARP and you got HAMP and you got some of those products that came out.
Refi Plus, and we're crushing that. So 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12 were the best years I ever had.
This is
Which
a first.
Is counterintuitive.
Is this a first?
Dude,
yeah. I don't think anybody has said that on this podcast.
Well, so what I did when I moved my office to 𝗘𝗵𝗄, the reason I moved from Lake Oswego to 𝗘𝗵𝗄 so I could get my kid to school and to sports, because I was driving 45 minutes there and back, so I was losing an hour and a half a day. So I thought, well, I'll just move my office to 𝗘𝗵𝗄, so I've got an extra hour and a half to work. And I remember doing USDA loans up here in Battleground with Dolly Krause back in the 1998, 99. Well, nobody was talking about USDA loans. That was 100% financing, which nobody had. So I came to 𝗘𝗵𝗄, which was all of USDA, and I brought that to all the realtors, and their brains went bananas. And I was brokering 25 to 30 USDA loans a month to Chase, even though I was at Sierra Pacific. They wouldn't do USDA loans because of the crash. They wouldn't do anything that was 100% financing. So I had to broker them to Chase back then.
I don't know if you knew this, but there are many loan officers that struggled in 2007.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
9.
I mean, it's,
You might not have read that.
I
There
know.
was a tough time.
I get it, but that's how I made it through it. I mean, I just came to CANBI and we were doing 100% financing. Like,
let's bookmark this because I
was gonna
want to
say.
keep coming back to it.
I'll show you my financials.
But
yeah,
here's the beauty for the Knowledge Coop, a little self-promotion. So you're saying product knowledge and understanding your guidelines
really?
and how
Oh,
it
boy.
works was what drove
was
you forward.
That was my whole thing about business. I mean, and one of my employees, Mark Alto, he's the same. I mean, that guy is a guideline.
He's been on the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, that guy loves guidelines. When he gets an
Yeah.
underwriter that doesn't agree with him, he can shoot. I mean, he's and he never loses. 'Cause
Right.
he knows the guidelines. But yeah, that's how I made it through. I literally USDA loans. That was it.
And you just taught realtors we can do better.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this on a podcast recently. With
Clark.
Chad.
Mastery.
Where he was building out his a big seminar series to like last year or 2021, and he was just like, let's go just kill it right now. And we were like, who thought that
Yeah.
year? And he wasn't just thinking it, he was delivering that in seminars to people like, hey, why don't we just kill it? And having that mentality you had is a difference maker. But you had savings.
I mean, I was doing okay, but I didn't have to make a lot to make it.
Right.
I just had my house.
You
paid.
kept the
That
nuts
was it.
short or
Yeah.
low.
But that's
and-
not really the point. I mean, that's wisdom and that's a good practice
Right.
for anybody, but it wouldn't have mattered if you had a bigger nut to crack every month. I mean, you still would have made it because you were closing loans because you knew where opportunity existed and you were smart enough to be knowledgeable on a product that created opportunity, that you could fill opportunities, you could meet opportunities. That's what, in that time period, everybody was throwing their hands up saying, there's no business, there's no business, there's no
Well, because
business.
everybody was focused on their, Clackamas or Milwaukee or Portland,
Right.
which they didn't have any no money down options.
Yeah.
And I just stayed in CANBI. And then I went to Pinnacle because Sierra Pacific, I just got so frustrated because everything I was brokering didn't count towards my volume tiers. So they would look at the volume,
of course.
who's that guy? Oh shit, I can't remember his name. He was at Sierra Pacific right now. He's at APMC right now. He's a baseball player down in Corvallis. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about. Crap. Anyway, him and I were always neck and
Kirkland.
neck. No. But if we counted my broker volume, I would have crushed it.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and then Sierra Pacific was just super tight on guidelines, and Pinnacle wasn't because they just came in at 2008. They didn't have any legacy issues. They didn't have any.
Bolliard had just bought the company.
Yeah, and he was fearless.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
that guy
was.
was like,
And
so
deep-
I was like,
and deep
let's go to-
pockets.
Pinnacle. And then that's when, I was the number 2 behind, Doug Jacobson for a few years because he was a refi guy.
Yeah.
But out of CANBI, I was the number 2 guy at Finance of America for the RSB channel, just doing USDA loans.
Wow.
And then, things obviously changed and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to keep my little thing small and
So you're-
and keep your son in the same school.
yeah. That
So
was
you're
really
executing
it.
a business plan that could have been written on a napkin, but you're executing it.
Yeah.
And you're having success in a market where most people aren't. And you've created a lifestyle that's easy to sustain and support because you've been prudent previously. You haven't had a ton of obstacles that you couldn't overcome. Did you deal with any that got kind of thrown your way anywhere near that time?
Most of it was just, no.
So you got through that period, that the Great Recession, you got through it without pretty much
there was that-
professionally unscathed.
Professionally, yeah. I mean, there was that, like I said, that 3-month period where I didn't fund any loans that I had to eat up a lot of savings. But,
Sure.
if it would have went another 3 months, for sure, I would have had to sell my house or something to reduce the cost. But professionally, no, we were just focusing on, what we could do to make that. There were still people that wanted to buy houses, even though the rates were at 6 3/4 or 7 or 7 1/4. But obviously the prices were lower, so people could afford it. That was a big thing. But
Right.
no, that's the thing. I didn't have a whole lot of struggles. And it really allowed me to just really focus on building the team that I wanted, as far as, you know, an LOA and a processor, and really dial in who does what when. That's what
team
I
in the
talk
system.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's our people, who does what when, so that nobody's going like this and trying to blame each other. I was waiting for order outs, or I was, you know, no, anyway. So now most of my struggles happened in the last probably 8 years, but that was because of personal decisions that I had, believing in people that I probably shouldn't have. But so my stuff has all been in the last 8 years.
I read somewhere, or maybe it was in a conversation this morning, you did have a couple of medical issues along the way. if rumor has it.
It's always fun when somebody's like, "What's wrong with your neck?"
I didn't say it that way. I said, I've never noticed that.
That is true. You did say
Yeah. How did so you went
I don't know
through,
how you didn't know.
You didn't put it on Facebook. I don't think you texted me. Did you?
I didn't text you. No, I didn't tell anybody. My significant other at the time took a picture of me after she took me to radiation like 2 times the whole time. And one of the times she posted it that I was halfway through, and everybody blew up. Like, wait, what? Because I didn't really want anybody to know. I know it sounds weird, but I don't know why. I knew it wasn't going to kill me. So yeah, I got a tonsil cancer, and I had one lip node in my throat that had cancer in it. And so we had to have surgery, which is, they do a neck dissection and took out 28 lymph nodes, and then took out both my tonsils.
Wow.
And then had to do 6 weeks of radiation after that. So, man.
And you didn't want to make a big deal for anybody else to know about it, or to...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I just didn't want to. Yeah.
You were just,
I knew it wasn't going to kill me.
You're like, I'm going to go fight this thing, and then, but you knew from the beginning it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I just had a peace about it. It just, for me, I knew it wasn't my time. I knew I had more things to accomplish in my life. For better or worse, I just knew that God wasn't telling me, all right, you know, make your final plans.
Get ready.
Yeah.
I just knew that I was going to beat it, and the surgeon was great. You know, he made it. You know, he felt really confident that he got it all. But we're going to make you do this radiation just to make sure. I didn't have to do chemo. If the lymph node would have been, the lymph node was 3 centimeters. If it would have been 3 centimeters 0.01, they would have made me do chemo.
Whoa.
Yeah. So luckily I didn't have to do the chemo part, because that really knocks you out. But radiation is bad enough, because they take this plastic mold. They make this mold that goes over your shoulders and over your face. So every time you go, they can get the radiation in the same spot. So they bolt your head to the table.
They bolt your head to like strap it or bolt it?
No, they take this mold and they put it on the table and they snap it down.
So they can target it exactly.
Yeah.
I'm picturing, was it Han Solo that was frozen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it like that? So it's just like
picturing Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, maybe that too.
If you're claustrophobic, that is the worst thing ever. Like, you can't move for 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
Because you have to sit there, then they have to move you, then you have to wait for the doctor to approve. So the doctor could be hanging out with somebody else, and then he comes back and the radiation is 2 minutes per laser. I had 2 different lasers. So 4 minutes of radiation, but I had to sit there for 15 or more minutes and hope, and they leave the room.
Dude, I struggle with dental x-rays.
Yeah.
When they put the thing in there and they're like, don't move. I'm like, but you're strapped to it. You're bolted to this thing.
Yeah, I had to do, they gave me an anti-anxiety medicine, but then somebody's like, well, if you're taking this, it's going to make your body not heal as fast. Oh, so I was like, all right, I don't want to take that.
Just nut up. And
so then I was like, well, what do we have in Oregon that can help? So I did. I went to a weed shop and I was like, all right, I need something to help me with this anxiety. And they're like, you know, of course they know everything. Like, this is what you need. And so it did. It helped. It took just enough the edge off where I could actually get in and put that mask on.
What year was this?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
And your diagnosis was basically you got a nasty cough, and then eventually that turned into coughing up some blood, right?
Yeah. That's how. Yeah, that was what was weird. I had a swollen lip node, which I didn't think anything of. But then one morning I coughed up some blood and thought, that's probably not right. So I had my family doctor look at my throat, and then that just was like, everybody that I met with was like, yeah, that doesn't look right in my throat. And so, yeah, one tonsil. So now they cut it all out. So you know that little uvula thing? It's all gone.
You don't have one?
It's all gone.
Whoa.
Yeah. I don't snore anymore, which is great.
There you go.
Oh, that's kind of
So
nice.
yeah, there's some positives.
Unintended benefits.
Yeah.
Unintended consequences and unintended benefits.
It was, it's funny because it's the same thing like when people say thank you for your service. Most military guys actually don't necessarily like that a lot because we just did what we were supposed to do. And especially for somebody like me that wasn't in combat. Like I drank a lot. I mean, I was in from 86 to 90. There was nothing. And when you're out of sea, you have all this money. So when you hit port, I mean, excuse me, I didn't really drink a lot before that. So yeah, I mean, I didn't really do much. So for me, when somebody says that, I go, yeah, it's just awkward.
Yeah.
You know,
which is interesting. So I said, raise my hand. Like you raised your hand and I didn't. So I think that's where I come from in that comment.
And that's what a lot of people say.
You took a risk I wasn't willing to take.
And I was. I mean, if there would have been a war, for sure, I would have done my
Right.
job and so on and so forth. But I feel the same about cancer. Like I know so many people have had it way worse, like way worse, especially a lot of women that have with breast cancer. And I mean, it could be, disfiguring and all kinds of stuff. And I go, I had tonsil cancer. I mean,
you went through an ordeal that was bad. It's cancer. There's no good way around it. And yet, if you live long at all, you know people who've had far worse experiences with your cancer battle than you have, and you just have to kind of put it in context.
I mentioned earlier I would take your treatment over Kirk's any day of the week. So
we don't want to get into.
We're not going to talk about it. He didn't want me to talk about it the first time, so we won't bring it up again.
So on that note, it's knowing that other people have had it worse. I think that's what makes me like going on these trips. From the military, when you get back, literally, when you're out at sea and you come back to the United States, you literally want to kiss the ground. You really do. You see all these other countries and all these people and how they live and what they have, what they don't have. And you come
real
back
hardship.
And go, I can never say I have a bad day, ever. And maybe that's part of, I don't want to say motivation, but appreciation. When you just know, like, you're so blessed, like you're freaking lucky to be in this country. I think you don't take a lot of things for granted because you see all these people that have nothing and they're the happiest people you've ever met.
Yeah.
I've been to Africa like 5 times, and every time I go, it's just such a great experience because these people literally are just happy.
I was just telling this to somebody that I started thinking my stuff matters, or that I'm dealing with difficult things. And I go, I have to get to Guatemala. Like I need to go because that's the only way I'm going to get like my perspective correct.
Yeah.
Where you see people who are smiling bigger than you and they have way less than you. And you're like, wait, there's a secret here that my stuff doesn't matter nearly as much.
It really helps make you realize that really my day isn't that bad.
Yeah.
And I think that when you come up against adversity, then you're like, this is no big deal.
Yeah. You have a reservoir.
Yeah,
you do.
I'd much rather have these types of adversity, really, that are probably more opportunity. They just feel like they might be adversity versus living in the jungle. And
it was so cool to hear you say when we were chatting out in the lobby earlier about, I got diagnosed, but I knew it wasn't going to kill me. I knew this was not. And I felt exactly the same way. And I still don't know why, because some people hear the C word.
Yeah.
I mean, my cancer was an incredibly aggressive form of cancer. It was stage 1, but it was nasty. It was a nasty type of cancer. And when I heard you say that, it was like, I wonder what produces that mindset. And I still don't know, but whatever it is, it fascinates me that, okay, I got this. It's a battle. We got to do this path and it's not going to kill me.
You guys are both fighters by nature too, though. Like you fight for what you want. You've struggled to get where you are. You work, you do the work. You know that if you do the work, it will lead to outcomes. That's just my take from on this side of the table is you guys have gotten the outcomes you've been looking for because you put in the work that you needed to do. And both of you were like, when's our appointment? Let's go.
Well, there's some people I think that back down from challenge because of lots of different reasons, fear, insecurity, whatever. I've never quit. I don't quit. I don't know why. I've just never been somebody that likes to let something kick my butt. Like I got my pilot's license.
Oh, that's right.
During that time of when I was going through cancer. I started it before, and then I ended up getting it in August after my treatment. I finally did my check ride, but it was one of those things that was hanging over me because I started it and I was like, and I failed my first check ride. I wasn't even remotely prepared. And the DME or the DPE, the designated pilot examiner, I was all messed up on airspace, and she was like, yeah, you're not ready. And so I was like, temporarily, I was defeated. I was like, yeah, I don't think I can ever do this. But then I was like, I'm not going to let this thing kick my tail. And I ended up finishing my check ride in August after my cancer. But I think it just has to go down to whether or not you're going to roll over and let things, dictate where your life's going to go, or you're going to just kick ass and take names.
Well, and let's just note that while he's doing these things, dealing with cancer, getting his pilot's license, the rates are 3%. So I imagine business got a little crazy for you as well.
I have some amazing people. What's funny is after the fact, I was talking to my ops manager, 𝗘𝗺𝗯𝗿𝗂, and I was like, God, that was the easiest time. Things just flew through. And
she throws something at you.
She gave you the one finger salute, didn't she?
Yeah, she's like, that's because I made sure nobody talked to you. It was like, I get it. So yeah, having amazing people in your life obviously helps a ton, but it goes both ways. I mean, we always say there'll be a funeral before a divorce. So if she ever leaves me, she knows she's gonna.
I don't think I've ever said the phrase lessons from last time.
This is now recorded, so it'll be Exhibit A.
Yeah.
If, like, if
𝗘𝗺𝗯𝗿 goes missing.
I don't think I've ever repeated the title of our show, Lessons from Last Time, more than I have in the show, but you bring up so many things. You talked about being discouraged or defeated when you failed your pilot's exam and you're trying to finish this thing. It's not that you don't feel insecurity or fear or defeat, or it's not. You feel them. You experience the exact same thing that other people do. You just don't let it own you.
But never.
You meet it with
literally
some sort of grit, some sort of, okay, and then let's get back up, dust off, and get after it.
Yeah.
How was this different? Because now the market has crashed and now it's feeling like it's starting to feel a little bit better, but how was 22 and 23 for you? A
completely different battle. I've never had a mental battle. Usually everything is a systems battle or a, there's just different types of obstacles. But this one was seriously a slow eroding mental battle for a lot of people, and so yeah, just really having to pivot as the I hate saying the word leader, but the leader, and just like really just trying to keep those people focused, and it's okay, you have the feelings, but just keep people, because this has been the longest downturn of volume that we've seen for a long time. Yeah. And so usually we're so used to, all right, everybody's like, oh yeah, we'll have a bad couple of months and it'll snap right back. But when it didn't, and then it didn't, and then it didn't, even high producers were like, what am I doing wrong? Because everybody started thinking that, like, what am I, so yeah, I think this time it was just way more of a mental battle.
I think for a lot of reasons, because you got 2020 and 21, you got COVID, you got a global shutdown.
Everybody was a big deal, right?
Right, but our industry boomed.
Yeah,
for whatever reason. Even the stock market did pretty good for a while there.
Yeah.
So the industry booms, but there's still this mental heaviness to all of society.
Everybody.
And you get through that. You talked about it in the podcast we did with you, how heavy a time that was when isolation really started to affect people. And then but you're still making money if you're in the mortgage business, or if you're a realtor, you're crushing it, you're still doing good. And then, but you're still mentally filled with some anxiety or some anguish or whatever. And then you go off the cliff. Now we don't have any business. Oh crap. The only thing I could hold on to that was buoying me up after the discouragement of COVID is gone.
Yep. Well, there was no silver bullet that was coming back.
Exactly.
And that's what everybody in our industry is like, always looking for that. Oh yeah, if I just do this, then all of a sudden, people were doing that and it still wasn't working. It still wasn't working. So, my whole message was just keep at it. Just, Eric Post did that. Didn't he do a Kilimanjaro or one of those? Oh yeah. One of those big climbs. Yeah. And those, what are they called? The guys that guide you?
Sherpas.
The Sherpas. Yeah.
And they tell you one step at a time. Just, even if it's slow. Like Eric said, I went so slow. And I say, obviously everybody's heard how to eat an elephant, right? Right. One bite at a time. So I just kept, just keep doing what you're doing. But for us, I pivoted it to authenticity. That's been my message for the last year and a half. Just be authentic. just be yourself. Everybody's so like, comes up with a sales pitch or well, just ask them what are they looking for in a lender? I mean, we've all heard it, right?
Gosh.
It's like, stop it. Can you just be authentic and just really get to know somebody? Because then they really want to do business with you when they really know you.
Feel a connection.
Right. If it's just a sales pitch and they're trying to get something from you, that's the last thing you want to do is give it to them. So just be authentic. That's really been our success in what we've been doing. So
yeah, be yourself and
Consistently.
have conversations. I mean, it's funny when you talk to people and they're like, yeah, nobody wants a loan. And we're like, how many people did you ask today?
Yeah.
None. And they said no. Interesting.
Wow, shocking.
Yeah.
When did you graduate high school? What year?
1985.
Okay, so you're young.
Very young. Spring chicken, really.
80 here.
Okay.
So yeah, I got you.
All right.
beat by a couple. But
He's 80 is what he just said.
Yeah.
yeah.
You only look 60.
Oh, you said graduate in 80. I'm sorry. I thought you were sharing your age. You hadn't done that
No,
on
I'm
the
not
podcast
quite. If
before.
I'm 80, I'm pretty happy about that.
You look
I'm
like
looking
great
good for 80, but I'm
I
not
mean, even
sure.
75, you'd look great.
I'm not sure for what I am. I always say it's not the years, it's the miles. They've sometimes been hard. But I think part of what you're talking about or what you're describing, that mentality of being authentic, I can't say that I was always that way. I think there were times where I got caught up in the mortgage business about belonging and, that Beamer looks pretty cool.
Yep.
And everybody else is driving them. And what did Ellerding buy this year? And yada, yada, yada. There's times where you get caught up in that. But the older you get, the less hoots you give about, how's that?
We've said you can swear on the podcast.
I'm trying to be a good boy. You just
Right.
don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And the only thing that you do care about is being genuine and people who are being genuine with you and the relationships, the meaningful relationships you can cultivate, whether it delivers a commission check into your bank account or not.
100%.
That, I think, can be core to you, but I think it really comes to light with age. I think you just start to see that meaning in life is way more important than the emblem on my car. And
Or the
not that you can't learn that
or the
earlier.
award on the
Exactly.
wall,
How many
Country
president's
trophies.
clubs
or
I've
the
been to.
number I am on the list
Yep.
of whatever.
Yep.
Look at me, I'm number whatever. Yeah, none of that matters. It really doesn't. And we've all heard it's not what is it? People always remember how you make them feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Not
I mean,
what you
everybody
say.
says that, but how many people really do it?
Yeah.
Like really be present. I think that was one of the other things too about 2022 and 23 is being present, because everybody was so focused on what they did versus what they don't have, instead of just being like, just do today, do today, and that's was the message for. But now we're starting to see. I've been talking about 2024 for the last 6 months. I'm like, guys, get ready, learn your systems, learn your guidelines. If you don't know how to do something, figure it out now. Because 2024, I know it's coming.
Yeah.
So be ready. And most of my people are there, but there's always the people that, I better get ready.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it's
just
why
nature
we're
of
working
business.
we worked all of the last 2 years on new loan officer training, new processor training, new underwriter training. Like, how do we get the training ready? Because there's going to be people, because so many have left. People will come back in and need that training because it is going to be amazing.
Well, PE for us is booming right now. We got people signing up for
Oh yeah, pre-licensing.
pre-licensing.
Crazy.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It's going nutty on us right now. We actually threw some more money into Google ad placement to take advantage of
That's
the fact
funny
that
because I
people
heard
are-
a statistic yesterday that 37% of the people got out.
33% of statistics are actually made up. No, it's 93. I think it's 93.7% of statistics are made up.
Oh, all right. So
Yeah.
that doesn't mean anything.
No, nobody actually knows. So they haven't released the numbers from NMLS yet.
107% of the people got out of the business.
117%, I think now. Yeah.
Shauna came home last night and said they were at a team meeting and somebody shared that 50% of people have left, 50% of loan originators have left the mortgage industry. I said, where'd you get that data? Because
People are just we know where the data comes from. They haven't released it.
They haven't released it.
And so everybody's
this
just
was on like
guessing at
Housing Wire or
things.
something
Yeah,
like that. Somebody
yeah.
saw some dude.
Yeah,
But anyway.
It's not real.
Okay, good. Well, then
But a
we're
bunch have left for
That's
sure. We
funny.
just don't have the real
absolutely,
numbers.
and a pretty good chunk. But with PE numbers showing, at least for us, what they're doing, it's a pretty good indicator of
Yeah.
what might be coming.
Right.
So you're doing your thing now. Somebody wants to get a hold of you. How do they reach out to you, Derek?
I mean, I just Googled Derek Hill. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm everywhere, but Facebook, Derek Hill,
Advantage Mortgage.
DEREK, Advantage Mortgage.
Yeah.
Our website's findtheadvantage.com, but
That's a
I'm
cool
pretty
website.
easy to get a hold of. And
How'd
I
you get
answer
that
and
site?
I'm one of those guys that answers their phone.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Does that frustrate you when somebody always
Don't
leaves
talk
you?
about me. I'm right here, dude. I am right
So
here.
I'm one of the, and I think this is definitely an age thing. I still use my phone. Nobody else that I work with does,
Why
but
are
I
you
still use my
calling me?
phone.
That's ridiculous.
I know. My son says the same
nobody
thing.
Should ever
Well, I
call
appreciate
me.
you guys letting me come on. It was fun.
You
Well,
are such a perfect fit,
yeah.
Derek, with what this show is all about.
Oh,
What
yeah.
we hope to deliver to our audience with our guests. It's just a great fit. It's simple. It's true. It's repeatable. Somebody can take what you said and apply it. They don't have to go get a particular degree or go through a course or pay anybody else to coach them. Not that there's anything wrong with coaching. I'm a big believer in it, but they don't need to do anything other than make a plan, execute it, be consistent with who they are, honor other people, and
Look
walk
for
down the road.
opportunities. Yeah.
And I love helping people. I've had other people in the industry that I've known that work at other companies. I help another guy leave and start his own broker shop. I'm very transparent and love to help people. So if anybody has questions, I'm always available. So yeah.
All right, we have one last question for you. We like to ask everybody, if you were to go back to your youth as you are now with all the knowledge and wisdom you have today, you go back to your 12-year-old Derek Hill and give him one piece of advice.
About mortgage or just about life?
Life.
Oh man. God, I don't know. There's so many.
The kid's been moving around from house to house, has lived in a lot of houses, had to make new friends.
I would say develop those really tight friendships that you know that are always going to be there regardless, that, and fight for them. If there's those people that bring value to your life and that love you and care about you, fight for them like you never, ever, don't let them leave, I think the people in my life that are still here today are, I've had a lot of, different things that have caused a lot of situations in my life personally more than anything than business. But yeah, just really value those family and those friends, and nobody's perfect, stick with them. And
What I love about that advice is it has absolutely nothing to do with schlepping a loan.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with writing up a loan app or.
oh, was I supposed to say that?
No.
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 Nope.
Supposed
No,
to
it's
say exactly
perfect.
what you
It's
said.
perfect. Yeah.
That's just me. I
Yeah.
just think that fighting for those people, and because I didn't have a lot of family, and the people that have family, obviously they're the ones that, everybody wants what they don't have, right?
Yeah.
I have brown hair, I want blonde hair, blah, 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 but just enjoy what you have. So
Yeah.
I think that's anyway,
That's awesome. Derek,
Thank
let's
you.
go to Guatemala.
let's do it, man.
Right
It's gonna
on.
be
That's
fun.
tonight.